can Bitcoin be corrupted? Can a middleman, can a Vanguard, can a BlackRock come in and find some way to corrupt this supreme innovation?
Yeah, there are a number of approaches that can be used. Number one is the market cap of Bitcoin is quite small in comparison. It's $300-400 billion at the moment.
Quite small in comparison to what Vanguard and BlackRock can do. Okay,
yeah, right? Because they've got
trillions of dollars, like 20 trillion between them.
10 trillion, 15 trillion,
yeah.
Whatever, right?
Right.
So there's that. So what has been done and what can continue to be done is to have ETFs that are not based on spot price. They're simply futures based in US dollar.
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin ETFs, but in US dollars. It means you don't have to actually buy any Bitcoin to bet against it. And so what happens is that you can have a tremendous amount of money lined up to short a Bitcoin, the Bitcoin price at the time, and put a tremendous amount of pressure, tremendous amount of selling pressure on it if you don't have spot ETFs, where you actually have whoever is providing the spot ETF has to hold Bitcoin, which means that they would actually have to purchase Bitcoin, which means that they would drive the price of Bitcoin up as they purchase. So that's one gimmick, which is simply to have U.S. paper be Bitcoin rather than real Bitcoin, and use ETFs that way. That's one thing you can do. The other thing you can do is if it ever gets to the point where Bitcoin becomes widely adopted, and
because people are saying we're at 4%.
Well, it depends on where you're talking about. If you're looking at the United States, we're like 10%. But if you're looking at the whole world, we're like 1%.
1-2%.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So, but if there's widespread adoption and the value of Bitcoin goes up tremendously, I mean, 100,000, 200,000,
Speak my language.
So at that point, it may be perceived as a threat to the US dollar, because if it gains the market cap of gold, for instance, say Bitcoin goes to 10 trillion in value, and more central banks start to
I saw a story that one started to adopt it.
Yeah. There are a number of central banks looking at it as an alternative to gold to shore up their reserves. So once you get that, and El Salvador with their adoption of
they were ahead of its time,
right? And it's a crazy experiment, but
just a poor country trying to do something.
Yeah. So if it turns out that Bitcoin becomes too successful, it's possible, especially if it's looking more and more like a threat to the dollar, or rather a threat to the dollar's dominance as the world reserve currency,
right?
Then it can just be banned, and so the government says that's it, no more Bitcoin, And so now it's driven underground.
And where it will gain exponential value.
Well, it depends. Not necessarily so. Because,
You don't think so?
Well, here's the problem. Institutional investors can't touch it anymore. Now, institutional investors is where the money is. That's what drives the price. Right? So they're not going to be able to touch it. And so that's a problem.
But a signal from any legitimate central authority in the West that they ban it straight out.
Yeah.
I don't think that helps. I think it helps Bitcoin more than it hurts it, honestly.
Long term, you think you're right. But, there's going to be...
because the exchanges still would exist. The people who got in early still would have their currencies. They still would be able to break it up into whatever stable company. It's just...
Well, U.S. exchanges wouldn't, or rather exchanges wouldn't be able to have U.S. customers anymore with Bitcoin. It would have to be largely a case of you having to hold on to your own Bitcoin, which,
a lot of people don't do.
Which a lot of people don't do. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. It's complicated.